You're listening to the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall, where we talk with successful business owners to hear the stories of their journeys in building their successful businesses. And more importantly, we recognize the folks who help them excel because we know that achieving business success is not something we can do on our own.
Hello, this is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. My guest started the Bankable SBA microloan program right out of undergrad in 2010. In his downtime, he enjoys the process of planning and growing a garden in his backyard, and he's most proud of not giving up on his current project, ProjectionHub, even when things weren't working out for him, and eventually figured out how to get that to be successful. And he's going to share a little bit more about that with us today. It's my pleasure to have Adam on the show today. Hello, Adam.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let's start with having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live, and about your family and hobbies.
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Kokomo, Indiana. So I've been in Indiana, but took a few different routes along the way to get back to Indiana. So lived in Texas for a while and up in Detroit, Michigan. When I was growing up, my dad was in the automotive industry, and so kind of followed GM. He was a supplier for GM and kind of followed that around the country a bit, and then ended up back in Kokomo for high school. Went to Taylor University here in Indiana for undergrad, and I studied accounting. During that time, I did some audit internships, did a tax internship, and realized accounting. The accounting career was not really my thing. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so, decided to go a different path after graduation.
Fantastic. And your garden, is it a vegetable garden that you do?
Yeah. We have, I don't know, tomatoes and cucumbers and squash, all sorts of squash. And we have strawberries and raspberries too. And
oh, wow.
Lots of different stuff. It is a little, I have 4 kids. I should have mentioned that I have four boys ages 8 to 18 months. So I feel like with each successive child, it gets harder and harder to keep the garden going. So,
right. Yeah.
But yeah.
How big is the garden?
It's big. I mean, it's pretty big. I don't know, like maybe 25 yards by 10 yards or something like that. Okay, I mean, it's
good size.
I kind of just kept digging up more of the yard each year.
I also enjoy doing vegetable garden every year, so that's why I was asking more of the details. It's really fun, but also can be frustrating when something doesn't turn out the way that we assumed it would, and the way it did last year. It's like, what happened? Why did it not work this year?
Yeah, for sure.
So, Adam, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
Oh, funny story. Well, I guess probably maybe the claim to fame is the way that I met my wife. So we were both going to be going to Taylor University, and this was 2006, so right around when Facebook was becoming a thing, but you didn't really know like what was maybe normal Facebook etiquette at the time because it was new, so and you had to be part of a college to be able to be on Facebook. So it was like, everyone that just got accepted to Taylor, then got to get a Facebook or join that group or whatever. And so kids are just kind of messaging each other back and forth. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, let's see, there's some some cute girls here. Maybe I'll send some messages. So my poor wife was the one sucker that responded to my message, and yeah, we started chatting, before we even started going to school. And my I guess the main embarrassing part, but the claim to fame is that my last name, Hoeksema, is Dutch, and her last name was Van Dusen, which is also Dutch. And I knew that. I knew it was Dutch, but I started the relationship out with a lie and said, hey, van names are van names Dutch? And, I thought this is how I'll get her to respond. And we'll strike up a conversation. And she responded and said, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. And this is my future best friend. So it was
awesome. I love it. Thanks for sharing. Tell us about how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, so after graduation from Taylor, I started at the Flagship Enterprise Center, which is a business incubator in Anderson, Indiana. And the reason they hired me was they were just starting this microloan program. And so we were making small business loans to small businesses in the area. So I was really interested in entrepreneurship. I was just like soaking up everything from folks that I was working with. And I had started like that very first summer, I started my first idea that I think failed. And then I started another idea that failed. And so within the first couple of years, I had started a couple ideas. Along the way, I had started a blog, and the blog was kind of on the, it was all around this niche of like helping you write executive summaries for a business plan. Really kind of a strange niche, but it started getting some Google traffic, and I created a little financial projection spreadsheet to go along with this, as one of the blog posts. And I decided maybe I'll just try to see if I can sell this, and figured out how to put it up for sale for like $25, and people started buying it. And I was like, shocked, as like a 23, 24-year-old at the time. So that was like kind of the first evidence that like there might be people are willing to pay for financial projections. People need help with this. This is something that, there's some value there. And so it didn't really click right away. But then eventually I realized, as I was doing my personal taxes using TurboTax, I kind of had this idea of like, man, there should be a step-by-step process or software tool that could help you create financial projections. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I called my brother, who's a software engineer, or was going to be studying software engineering, and asked him if he wanted to try to build this tool with me. And he said yes. So we struck out together and started to try to build this thing.
Wonderful. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
Yeah, so the business is called ProjectionHub, and we help business owners create financial projections for potential investors and lenders. Today, what we do is primarily two things. We have about 100 different financial projection spreadsheet templates that are industry specific for everything from a trucking business to a coffee shop to a multifamily real estate, apartment complex, to a software business, right? So just kind of all these different industries that we've created specific templates for. That's our primary revenue driver. And then that's maybe, let's say that's like 2/3 of the business, and 1/3 of the business is customizing and building custom financial models. We have a CPA on staff who will build a custom model or just help you fill the model out if you have, just don't have time to want to mess with it. So
yeah, fantastic. So for everyone listening, make sure to check them out in the link in the description, and go visit Adam on LinkedIn and tell him that you watched his interview today. So Adam, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though maybe you didn't think that you could, and the impact that that person had.
Yeah, I think I had a professor in college. His name was Mick Bates, who really helped me get kind of into the interest in entrepreneurship. So I think freshman year of college, I entered this business plan competition with an idea. It was a bad idea, but I did the process and ended up getting to the finals, and I didn't win the whole thing, but I won a little bit of money as like the best undergrad award or something like that. So it was like kind of like, you did a good job. You tried, we'll give you something. So so that kind of got the spark going. And then I would say probably every 6 months of college after that, I was like, I had a new idea, and I would come to Professor Bates with, here's my, this is the idea. And, I just remember this one time I had this idea that was just like so infeasible for me to do. I'd probably need like $1 billion of startup capital or something. It was just like, oh yeah, if you had $1 billion, this might be a good idea. But he just kind of told me like, I'm not sure this is the idea, but I'm sure you're going to have one that works. Like there's going to be an idea that works here. I'm just not sure this is it.
Yeah.
But that kind of like encouraged me to like, okay, I'm going to keep going at this.
Yeah.
Not get disappointed with the with the bad ideas or the failures.
Yeah. It's great that he was able to balance that, the giving you the tough love, but also encouraging you to stay at it and keep coming up with something more feasible. That's awesome. Adam, what's your biggest learning as a business owner?
Yeah, I think that, to put it in one biggest, I don't know. I guess I'd probably say, just get started is kind of the thing I often say, because, I work a lot with, and even we're helping people in the planning stages, right? With financial projections, we're helping people plan. So maybe it's a little strange to say, but in my experience, I've learned so much by just trying and doing and failing. That's how I've figured things out and learned way faster than I could have. I also listened to lots of podcasts on entrepreneurship and business, and I can confidently say I've learned a whole lot more by trying things on my own and screwing it up.
Sure.
So I would encourage folks that are, thinking about starting a business, or even just thinking about an idea in their business, like give it a try. Don't bet the farm on it, but give it a try in a small way. You're going to learn a lot that way. So
yeah, I love that advice, because there's so many of us who can get stuck in that analysis paralysis, or fear of failure, or fear of rejection, or fear of it not working out, and we can prevent ourselves from actually taking a step forward. So one of the phrases I love is progress, not perfection, right? And just get a version out there, or take a step forward. Even launching a blog as an example of, you look at my first, the first few, they're not nearly as well as where we're at today, but it's that same principle, right? Of just do it and learn through it and figure it out, and you'll get better as you go. So that's awesome advice. I appreciate you sharing that. We know that business success, doesn't happen in isolation. So what's a challenge that you had over the years, and maybe a fellow business owner who came alongside of you and helped you to figure that out?
Yeah, I think I kind of skipped over a big chunk of time in the Projection Hub story. So my brother and I started the business as a software tool, and we wanted to create a recurring revenue business where people would pay us a subscription to access this projection software every month. And so that was how the business started. We tried to make that business model work for probably like 6 or 7 years. Um, and just, what we ultimately learned is that, one, people need projections at a particular point in time. So it's not something they want to keep paying every month for.
Sure.
And also, Excel is still really good. we kept trying to add new features and do this and that in the software, and it was like, we're just kind of rebuilding Excel. Why are we doing this? And it's really expensive. And so I had talked to another business owner, and he was saying, like, not everything needs to be, a recurring revenue business. He said, have you thought about just charging a one-time fee? Because, your services needed one time. If people are just subscribing for a month or 2 or 3 and then canceling, you might be better off. You might generate more revenue if you just charged a fair one-time fee. And so we never really made that switch with the software tool, but that got us into selling Excel spreadsheet templates for a one-time fee. And that has, 10x the business from the subscription model, because he was right that, the people wanted to pay for it one time and are hesitant to sign up for a subscription for good reason, just as I am too.
Sure.
So,
right.
Yeah, I think that was a good learning. I was trying to force everything, you want everything to be recurring. And not everything is a recurring revenue business. So
I like that. I'll use the word pivot because I think that's, a good use of that word in this situation. I love that you were open to that feedback and open to changing the business model to, to take advantage of the fact that there is a need, but you had to deliver and satisfy that need in a different way, and be willing to, going from a recurring revenue model to a one-time model. That's a pretty significant pivot, but I appreciate the fact that, you guys were willing to do that and take that advice and try the other version and test and measure it. And as you mentioned, 10x, that's a pretty good return on a pivot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to put you on the spot here. If I was to ask you to pick 3 people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them being there to help with your growth, who are those 3 people and how'd they help you?
Yeah. So I would say, first, my wife, certainly. She stays at home with our 4 boys, and she's been supportive, and in entrepreneurship, a lot of times it feels like maybe I'm not doing it right always, but a lot of times the owner is the last one to get paid, right? The owner's the last one to really see, like, I'm like, hey, things are working. Okay, can we go on vacation? Well, I don't know about that.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going that well. So I think she's just been supportive so well along the ride, on the ups and downs of it.
What's her name?
So, Stacy.
Awesome.
And I'd also say, I think I'd probably then point out my two of my key employees who've been with me for a while. So Grace Cisna is our CPA. She was working at a maybe not a big 4, but a big 8 or something, one of the big CPA firms, and took a risk to leave that pretty steady, well-paying work to come and try to do ProjectionHub before we could really afford her, and kind of take I could promise a small base commission, but we thought we could grow it together. And so she took that risk, and I think it's worked out really well for all of us today. And she's grown, built a lot, most of the templates, as well as done a lot of the custom modeling for folks. So it was great that she was willing to take a risk on me. So her name was Grace Cisna. And then another employee that has had a big impact for us is Kyle Fawcett. So Kyle worked with me at Bankable when I was the executive director there for a decade, and he was leaving. He realized he wasn't going to stick at Bankable for forever. And so we're kind of trying to figure out what could be next. And kind of in a similar way, it was like, well, we like working together. We work well together. It'd be cool if we could keep working together outside of Bankable. And he was willing, and his wife was willing to say, yeah, let's take a risk on this. And he really his focus is on the marketing side of things. And so really marketing the template side of the business, not the consulting side. And has, again, I mean, we've probably, since he started 2.5 years ago, we probably, I don't know, 4 or 5x our monthly template sales. And, that was not clear that was not clear that we could do that when we decided to join. Just, I'd say those three have all like put a lot of personal risk kind of following me and helping support what we're trying to do here. So yeah,
that's fantastic. You mentioned, I'll go back to your wife and being a support and a rock and an encourager. That's pretty important to have, because the business owner journey can be a little bit of a roller coaster at times. And you mentioned earlier of, hey, not knowing, right, if I'm going to be able to pay myself in the beginning, or if we can take a vacation. So having your life partner, be your support and encourager is just so key in this business owner journey. So I can appreciate having that as well in my wife, and just appreciate how important that is and how critical that can be at different stages of the journey.
Yeah, for sure.
As you think about the next 3 to 5 years, Adam, what's the biggest challenge that you see that you're going to face in hitting your goals, and who are the types of people that you're going to need to help solve those?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges that we've seen is that most of our business comes from SEO. So we're getting organic website traffic, which is great, but it also is, we're kind of, we're riding on Google, Google and YouTube, and also owned by Google. So it's just like, we have a lot of eggs in that basket, and we've tried to figure out ways to diversify sources of traffic and business. But I've kind of come to the conclusion that the nature of the business is set up really well for SEO. It's like when somebody needs a projection template, they're going to look for it. And if we can be there when they need it right then, that's probably how people are going to be buying. It's not like I'm not probably going to sell many templates when someone's like, I might need this someday, or, they're going to buy it when right at, the just in time.
Sure.
And so I think I've kind of come to the realization that, diversifying that traffic within ProjectionHub may just not be, I may not be the right approach. And so I've been thinking about, how do I diversify though? And so
Yeah.
kind of moving into this direction of like, what are other, maybe start a different business or a different kind of service that could be diversified but complementary to what I'm doing with ProjectionHub, that would just, give us a bit more safety than just like Google changed the algorithm today and
Right.
all right, this has been fun.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think you asked like, what will I need to do? So kind of the direction or the way the thinking right now is that trying to build more of a personal brand around helping people buy small businesses is kind of what the plan right now is to focus on, where I can, be more active on LinkedIn or
Sure.
or Twitter, X, social media, build up that network of people that won't just be solely reliant on the Google algorithm. So
I really like that analogy of, or the story, the what if, right? What if the algorithm changes? Because that's key. And so one of the things we teach our clients, we call it the marketing 10 by 10. The idea is, 10 different marketing strategies, each representing 10% of our lead expectations. And the idea behind it is exactly what you said. It's the diversifying, because if we have all of our eggs in one basket and for some reason that one lead generation activity stops working, then, we're kind of left, right, in a pickle. So I like the thinking, right? It's the right and thought process, and yes, it's a challenge because of the just in time nature. But I do like where you're going in terms of, well, where maybe there's other ways to be just in time, right? Doesn't have to just be a Google search. Maybe you have a podcast, maybe you have, maybe you're a subject matter expert, and right, and people are coming to you different ways. Maybe you have blogs, and right, and it's not just the Google search algorithm. I love it. And personal example of that idea of all your eggs in one basket. If networking was my only lead gen, and then COVID happens and the world shuts down for 2 years, I'd be screwed. So again, having that, having more than one lead generation activity is so critical. So I'm glad that you're thinking through that, and can definitely appreciate that that is going to be a challenge to figure out, how do we grow beyond or get outside of just having, Google be our source of leads. So
yeah.
some last question here. We lots of business books and gurus out there. Jim Rohn is one of my favorite. He says that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So Adam, as you think about that quote, what advice would you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own, and don't think that they need to, reach out to others or read books or watch videos, that they just have to push through and figure out how to grow their business on their own?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that certainly hasn't been the case for me. That it's been other people that have, played different roles at different times, I think. So, like for example, I talked about the person that told me, have you thought about doing the one-time fee instead of recurring? It's like, I didn't really have a long-standing relationship with that person. It was just someone that had come into my life for a period of time, and what ended up being really, really helpful. But I think I said yes to, or I sought out connecting with others that I thought could be helpful or just like interesting to talk to.
Sure.
And I think I've found that has paid dividends, just, saying yes to a connection, or reaching out proactively to someone that I might want to try to talk to, that I think could be helpful, it's been worth it. It's been worth the time and effort of building relationships. So yeah.
I've often heard folks say, well, I don't want to bother somebody. I don't want to, reach out to them because they're probably pretty busy. So it sounds like you've had success reaching out to people. So how would you respond to that? If, somebody who's, oh, they're going to be too busy for me. They're not going to have time to talk to me or have coffee with me. What's been your experience there?
Yeah. What I have tried, especially when I feel like I'm trying to like punch above my weight, or like connect with someone that's like probably busier or whatever. One thing that has worked pretty well is like, if I have a very specific question, I'm like, I see you doing really well with YouTube, and so I have this YouTube channel, and here's my question. What would you do?
Yeah.
I've sent some very specific questions to folks, and then, kind of expecting like, I'm not going to hear anything, and then get just this wonderful advice. And that may be the only time I've ever talked to them, or will ever talk to them, or ever, connect with them. But so I would say, and I think if I would have just said, let's just get coffee, like, I'm guessing they would have.
Yeah, sure. Right.
But since I had maybe an intriguing specific question for them, and I think most people probably want to help others, right? And so I gave them the opportunity to see how they could help someone, maybe saw themselves, and just I'm them behind a few years or something like that. They remember when they were trying to figure it out. And so I think be specific with some questions, and I bet you'll be able to get folks to really help.
There does seem to be, especially within the business owner community, that sense of paying it forward, that, hey, back when I was just getting started, somebody blessed me with their time or an answer. And so, I'm going to make sure to do that for anybody that reaches out to me, because I know what it was like, right? To be struggling and figuring it out. And there just seems to be an abundance mentality of giving insights and advice and help within the business owner community, because we've all been through it, right? Yeah. So it sounds like lots of people that have been part of your business owner journey, that have helped you along the way. If they were all on the show here today, what would you want to say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think just a big thank you, and just I think that I've had folks just encourage me that I'm on to something, even when I can't see it, or it's, entrepreneurship is this roller coaster, right? It's like one day things are going great, the next day Google changes something and things are really terrible, and it seems like everything's, and it's like, I have people remind me in those situations, just remind me to, hey, we've built something pretty cool here. We, look at what has been accomplished, and that, that it's maybe it's better than, it's usually better than my worst day feeling, right?
Right.
maybe not quite as good as my best day feeling, right? It's just this the roller coaster. So I think just having people that are willing to be that stabilizer for me has been what can keep me going. So yeah.
Fantastic. Adam, been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show, and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.